The bracelet caught my eye the moment I stepped through the door. A thin, elegant band of white gold with a single sapphire in the center. Not flashy, just expensive enough to whisper the word without shouting it. It sat on the counter like it had been forgotten after being taken off in a rush, right next to the half-empty wine glass she never finished the night before. I stood there for a moment, keys still in my hand, staring at it. It wasn't hers, not one I'd given her, not one I'd ever seen. And it didn't fit her taste, too refined, too understated. She preferred louder pieces, jewelry that said, "Look at me," without apology. When she came down the hallway, tying her robe, she caught my gaze before she saw what I was looking at. Her smile froze halfway. Then she followed my eyes and said, a little too quickly, "Oh, that? Just a gift from a coworker. He gave a few of us bracelets for the end of the quarter." A coworker. I said nothing at first. Just picked it up, turned it in my fingers. It was cool to the touch. No tag, no box. "That's generous," I said finally. "What's his name?" She blinked. "Who?" "The coworker." She opened her mouth like she'd say it instantly, then hesitated. "Jake," she said, after a second too long. "From marketing." I smiled then, carefully. "Nice of Jake." She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. She moved toward the sink, started rinsing out her wine glass, said something about needing to return a few emails. I let it go, for that moment. But the name Jake, it sat wrong. I'd heard her talk about people from work before. I paid attention. Not once had she mentioned a Jake. That night I checked her company's website. Their marketing department had 6 people listed. No Jake. I looked through their quarterly announcement post on LinkedIn. Team photos, tagged staff. No Jake. Maybe he was new. Maybe freelance. Or maybe he didn't exist. Or maybe she didn't expect I'd check. A few months ago, I would have believed her. I would have nodded, moved on, maybe bought her dinner. But lately, things had shifted. She kept her phone face down more often. Laughed at messages she didn't show me. Came home, exhausted, but wired in a way that made sleep impossible for her and emotional distance unavoidable for me. And then there was the save-the-date card we just sent out 2 weeks ago. A smiling photo of us on the coast, her hand on my chest, my arm around her waist. Engaged. Committed. Public. I stared at that bracelet one more time before bed, tucked neatly now on her nightstand. A gift from a coworker. Sure. I wasn't going to argue. Not yet. Arguing invites lies. Instead, I started watching. I'd already learned how much truth lives in silence. I didn't do anything reckless. No late-night accusations. No checking her phone when she left the room. That's the kind of thing desperate people do. I was many things in that moment, but not desperate. Not yet. Instead, I opened a spreadsheet. 2 columns, claimed schedule and observed behavior. It started simple. Monday, she said she had a late team meeting, wouldn't be home until 8:30. She walked in the door at 8:47, hair down, cheeks flushed, said traffic was bad. Her company doesn't allow in-person meetings past 7. I know because it's one of the bullet points in the onboarding PDF they proudly posted online. Protecting employee work-life balance. Tuesday, she said she had lunch with Marla from operations, but Marla had posted an Instagram story around 1:15, at a cafe across town, alone, captioned, "Solo recharge before Q3 sprint." A beautiful almond croissant, untouched across the table. No second coffee. No sign of my fiancée. On Thursday, I found the receipt. It was in her coat pocket, crumpled but not torn, like she wanted it gone but not completely. The restaurant was Italian, upscale, tucked into a quiet street we'd only visited once, on our 1-year anniversary. The timestamp was 8:12 p.m. 2 entrees, 2 drinks, 1 dessert with 2 spoons. Our joint credit card wasn't used, she'd paid in cash. That, more than anything, made my stomach go cold. There was nothing definitive, no smoking gun. But it was the pattern that started to unmake me, how carefully she curated each detail of her alibi, how much energy went into pretending she was tired, stressed, overworked. The truth, I was beginning to suspect, took more effort to conceal than our entire wedding planning combined. The weekend came. She suggested we visit my parents, the same parents who just wired us money toward the venue deposit. "Let's show them the table design mock-ups," she said. "They'll love being involved." On the drive down, she played our Spotify wedding playlist like nothing was wrong. She sang along to our song, the one we danced to under string lights at the lake house, and reached for my hand on the gearshift. I gave it to her. I looked out the window while she hummed, my face calm. My fingers, though, flexed just enough for me to feel her skin and wonder whose hands she'd held earlier that week. Saturday night, she left her work laptop open on the dining room table at my parents' place. Said she needed to finish something before Monday. I waited until she stepped out for a shower, then took a walk with the laptop in my arm, just far enough from the house to not trigger the Wi-Fi. She hadn't logged out. No messages, no incriminating emails, but in her drafts folder, hidden under a subject line that looked like spam, forward Q3 template slide requests, was a block of text that had nothing to do with slides. It started mid-thought. I hate how good it feels, and how much I miss it the second I walk away from you. I read each line slowly, carefully. She wrote about timing, about pressure, about how he was asking if she changed her mind again, about how they had to keep things careful until after the event. The event. I didn't want to assume it meant the wedding. I didn't want to, but I knew it did. There were no attachments. No name in the draft. No signature. Just the raw nerve of a confession she didn't have the nerve to send. Yet, when I returned the laptop, I left everything exactly as it was. That night, while she slept beside me in my bed, her breathing soft and peaceful, I sat in the living room and pulled up our engagement photo on my phone. The one we'd printed on the save-the-date card. Her hand on my chest. That small smile she wore. Me, grinning like an idiot. I zoomed in on her face. Stared at it for a long time. Then I opened the photo roll and scrolled back, past the dress fittings, past the family barbecue, all the way to our engagement party. That's when I saw it. A photo I hadn't really noticed before. Group shot. Me in the center, flanked by old friends, some of her coworkers. And there, just behind her, was a woman I barely remembered meeting that day. She'd hugged me, gave us a cutting board engraved with our initials, wished us a lifetime of happiness. And standing next to her, arm around her waist, was a man with a drink in one hand and his other hand resting casually on the small of my fiancée's back. The caption on the photo said, "Can't wait for the big day. Love, the Griffins." That was the first time I realized she wasn't just cheating. She was cheating with a married man. And his wife had been a guest at our celebration. The next morning, I brewed the coffee just like she liked it, French press, oat milk, a dash of cinnamon on top. I handed it to her in the future Mrs. Caldwell mug her sister gave her after the proposal. She smiled, kissed my cheek, called me her perfect man. I asked her what she wanted for breakfast. She said a bagel, but only if it had real cream cheese, not that whipped nonsense. Her voice was light, normal, effortless. I watched her stir her coffee and thought about the woman from the photo, about how she'd smiled and posed and left her name on our guest list like a quiet footprint, a guest in my home, a woman with no idea, or so I thought. Back in the city that night, after she went to bed, I opened that photo again, the Griffins. I searched the name on Facebook, cross-referenced the guest list, found the woman's full name. Her profile was private, but not entirely. Her anniversary photo was pinned to the top. 10 years married. Same man from the photo, same drink in hand posture. A weekend getaway photo posted just last month, captioned, "Still choosing each other every day." Something about that line stuck. Still choosing each other. It felt like a weapon wrapped in warmth. I scrolled through her timeline, found a comment thread where someone tagged her husband by full name. That was when I finally had him. Not just Jake from marketing. His name was Darren Griffin, and he was not in marketing. He was the company's head of strategic partnerships. Higher than her department. Probably someone who didn't even appear in the day-to-day office shuffle, but close enough to cross paths if you were determined. The next day, I drove to a cafe near her office. Not to stalk, not to follow. I was past the point of needing surveillance. What I needed now was clarity and leverage. I sat in my car, scrolled through the email drafts again. Looked at the line that said, "I know this is dangerous, but I keep waiting for one of us to end it, and neither of us does." I remembered the tone of her voice when she talked about the wedding in front of her mother. The way she seemed to perform her excitement, like reading lines from a script. Her eyes didn't light up anymore when we talked about flowers or songs. They just scanned the to-do list like it was a job to be finished. She wasn't going to end it. Neither was he. So I would. That night, I found the bracelet in her drawer, tucked into a velvet pouch, still without a receipt or tag. I borrowed a jewelry box from the back of my closet, the one that held my grandfather's cufflinks, and placed it inside. Then I wrote a note. Thought this might belong to you more than her. Congratulations, you were a guest at our engagement party. Bet you didn't expect a souvenir. Then I printed screenshots, the photo from our party, the email draft, word for word, a copy of our save-the-date card. I didn't sign my name. I didn't need to. The envelope went into the mail the next morning. Tracked, certified, directly to the home address listed under their property tax records, pulled in less than 5 minutes with a public search. Then I waited. I didn't tell anyone. Not my brother, not my best friend. Secrets, I'd learned, have power, and I wasn't ready to let go of mine just yet. She didn't know what I'd done. For 3 days, things were eerily normal. She kissed me goodbye every morning, sent me heart emojis in the afternoon, watched documentaries with me on the couch at night. She laughed. She planned. She wore the ring I bought her like it still meant something. But I saw the cracks now. I could hear them every time she hesitated before answering a simple question. Every time she mentioned Jake, or Marla, or work stuff, with too much air between the words. And then, on the 4th day, it happened. She cancelled our venue walkthrough. Said she wasn't feeling well. Said she had a headache and needed time to recenter. She looked pale, shaken. Her voice wavered once before she steadied it. I didn't ask what was wrong. I just nodded, offered her tea, said I'd reschedule it. That night she barely touched her food. Said she needed to sleep early. I watched her slip into bed, saw her glance at her phone like she was waiting for something, or fearing it. She didn't know it yet, but the game was no longer between the 3 of us. There were 4 players now, and only 2 of us knew the rules had changed. The next morning, she left earlier than usual. No goodbye kiss. No coffee mug clink on the counter. Just the soft sound of the door closing and her keys jingling as she rushed out like the apartment was on fire. I watched her go from the window, still in my undershirt. She didn't look back. By noon, she hadn't texted. At 1 p.m., she broke the silence. Crazy day. Talk later? I replied. Sure. Hope it's not the kind of crazy that ends with a legal separation. She sent back a thumbs up emoji. That was new. I didn't expect her to confess. Not yet. She still thought she had a handle on the lie. But that meant she hadn't spoken to Darren, or more precisely, Darren hadn't spoken to her. Because if his wife received that package, and if she confronted him, it wasn't just their marriage hanging in the balance anymore. It was her job, her reputation, her future. That night I made dinner. Something simple. Spaghetti with roasted tomatoes and garlic bread, her comfort food. I wasn't being kind. I was giving her room to reveal herself. Pressure makes people slip. She picked at the food, barely touched the wine. I've been thinking, she said finally, pushing the noodles around. Maybe we're rushing the wedding stuff. That was her opening gambit. Test the waters. See if I'd bite. Funny, I said. I thought we were already behind on half the deposits. She gave a dry laugh. I mean, maybe a long engagement would let us breathe a little. You know? I nodded slowly. Or maybe you already can't breathe from living 2 lives. Her fork paused in the air. What's that supposed to mean? I looked at her then, not with anger, not with accusation, with pity. I mailed the bracelet back, I said, to Darren's wife. The silence that followed felt like a vacuum sucking every sound from the room. She blinked. Once. Twice. Set the fork down with a tiny metallic click. I don't know what. Don't lie, I said quietly. You're not good at it anymore. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at her lap. Her hands were trembling now, just slightly, but enough for me to see it. I never meant for it to. To what? I asked. Go this far? Get caught? She stood suddenly, took a step toward the hallway like she needed distance. It was complicated. I stayed seated. It wasn't complicated when you brought him to our engagement party. That made her spin back around. Her face crumpled. I didn't know she'd be there. But you knew he would be. That didn't stop you. She covered her mouth with both hands, not in shock, in shame. I'm sorry, she whispered. I thought I could manage it. I didn't think. You didn't think it would matter. I finished for her. Because you figured I'd never find out. Because I'm the safe one. The backup plan. Her eyes welled, but I wasn't moved. I'd done my crying already. Alone, in the dark, long before I knew the full truth. She reached for me once. I didn't take her hand. Is it over? I asked. She nodded quickly. Yes. It's been over. When? She hesitated. I stared at her. When? I repeated. 2 weeks ago, she said. Right after the engagement party. So, after you posed for pictures with me. After you let him touch you in front of his wife. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Why did you say yes? I asked. To the proposal. I thought he'd never leave her, she said quietly. And I thought, maybe I could learn to love you again. The honesty stung worse than the lie. I stood, walked past her toward the bedroom, pulled the drawer open, took the ring box out, brought it back and placed it on the table between us. Mail that back too, I said, since we're returning things. She started to cry then, full sobs. But I just watched, because I had already cried. I had already mourned. Now I was just closing the book. She didn't sleep in the apartment that night. Said she'd stay with her sister for a few days. Her eyes stayed wet the entire time she packed her bag. I didn't say much. Just watched her fold sweaters like she was moving out of a hotel room. Before she left, she asked if we could talk again, once things settle. I told her things weren't going to settle. They were going to unravel. The next few days were quiet on the surface, but I could feel the ripples spreading. I started making calls, first to the venue. Deposit, non-refundable, but I asked them to send me the receipt in her name. I'd need that later. Then the photographer, the florist, the band. Every one of them listed us as co-clients, which meant I had full access to cancel and document where her name appeared as the primary. That was the point now, not revenge but proof. Proof for whoever came asking. Her family, her friends, mine. And they would ask. Her mother called first. I'm hearing confusing things, she said, her voice tight. She won't explain. She doesn't have an explanation. I told her. Not one that won't make you sick. I didn't elaborate. I didn't need to. Her silence on the other end was all the confirmation she required. 2 days later, her sister texted me. I don't know what she did, but if you need someone to talk to, I'm here. I didn't reply. I was too busy pulling our accounts apart. The joint savings came first. I moved my portion, every dollar I'd contributed since we started the fund, into a separate account, left her share untouched. Fair, clean, indisputable. I sent her a spreadsheet that night. It included every transaction. She responded the next morning with a single line, "You don't have to be cruel." I didn't answer. Because cruelty would have looked different. Cruelty would have been taking everything. Posting the emails online. Burning the save the dates in a public bonfire. This was surgical. A few more calls, a few more emails. Her father texted me once. I ignored it. He never liked me, always looked at me like I wasn't quite worthy of her. I wondered what he'd think now. The real fracture came when my best friend, Evan, told me that his girlfriend had known something for weeks. One of her coworkers worked at the same company as my ex-fiancée. Word had been going around the office that someone from the marketing side was getting too close to an exec. I met Evan for a drink that night. When he said, "You okay?" I said, "No," and left it at that. Because honestly, I wasn't. I had been publicly humiliated without anyone knowing it. Betrayed by someone who wore my ring while whispering plans to another man. Who cried in my arms at night while hiding hotel keys in her bag. But I wasn't destroyed. I was just hollow. And getting sharper by the day. 1 week after she moved out, I received a letter. No return address. Just 1 page. "Thank you," it read, "for telling me the truth. I'm sorry we met like that. He's gone now. I hope you get your peace." It wasn't signed, but I knew who it was from. His wife. The woman from the photo. The final guest at our engagement party. I stared at that note for a long time. Folded it twice. Tucked it into a drawer with the rest of the documentation. I didn't know why I kept it. Maybe because she deserved a space in this story too. Not as a victim, but as someone who, like me, refused to stay in the dark. The invitations had been scheduled to go out that week. I caught them just in time, called the printer, told them to shred the batch. The woman on the phone was polite then quiet. I could hear the pause where she tried to calculate whether she should ask why. She didn't. Smart. 2 days later, I went to the tux fitting alone. I didn't cancel it. I needed to stand in that room. Needed to feel the weight of that moment I'd built toward. The mirror didn't care who was standing beside me. It reflected me cleanly, unforgivingly. Still going through with it? The tailor asked casually. No, I said. But I want to see what almost happened. He didn't ask more. He just measured. I appreciated that. There were things I hadn't prepared for, like the messages from old college friends. Just heard. Anything I can do? Bro, what happened? She always seemed too good to be true. That last one stayed with me longer than it should have. There were moments I nearly answered her texts. She sent 3 after the split. One asking if we could talk. Some were private. One apologizing again. And one, sent late at night, that just said, "You really did love me, didn't you?" I stared at that one for hours. Yes, I did. And that version of me, the man who knelt with a ring in his pocket thinking she was the best thing that ever happened to him, he was gone now. Not bitter, not broken, but changed in a way that no apology could undo. I didn't reply. The hardest part was returning the gifts. We'd already received a handful, early senders, overzealous friends. I boxed them up, labeled each one, and started the long process of reaching out to return them. One woman insisted I keep the wine glasses. "They're yours," she said. "You were always the stable one." It struck me that people had seen this coming in small ways. The silences, her half-answers, the way she spoke about our life together like it was an audition, not a plan. The cracks had always been there. I just loved her too much to see them. 2 weeks after she left, I sat in the apartment alone, drinking coffee from that future Mrs. Caldwell mug. It was the last thing of hers I hadn't thrown out or packed away. I held it in my hands for a long time before I finally stood, walked it to the trash, and dropped it in without ceremony. Not as revenge. Just as closure. 3 months after she left, I finally felt like I had solid ground under me again. I wasn't healed. Not completely. But I could walk through the apartment without seeing ghosts in every corner. I stopped checking the calendar like I was counting down to a wedding that would never come. I even caught myself laughing at a movie again, really laughing, not just forcing air through my nose to pass the time. I kept the ring box, not out of sentiment, out of discipline. It sat at the back of the closet behind a stack of tax folders. Whenever I thought about reaching out to her, or worse, forgiving her, I'd take it out and remind myself what it really was. A symbol of how close I came to disappearing inside someone else's lie. And then, one afternoon, I got a knock on my door. I was expecting a package. Instead, I opened it to find her standing there. Her eyes looked different. Less fog, more sharpness. "I just want 5 minutes," she said. I should have said no. I should have closed the door. But curiosity is a dangerous drug. I let her in. She sat across from me, not on the couch where she used to drape herself like she owned the place, but in the chair near the window. The one I usually sat in when I needed to think. "I'm not here to apologize," she said. "I already did that." I nodded. "Then what are you here for?" Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice didn't. "I think you should know. Darren wasn't the only one." The words landed like a punch wrapped in silk. I didn't speak. I waited. "There was someone else," she continued. "Before him. Right before you proposed." The silence between us stretched so tight it could have split the air in half. "I didn't expect you to propose," she added. "And once you did, I told myself it would fix everything." "You mean it would hide everything?" I said, voice flat. She didn't argue. "He was someone I worked with a year ago," she said. "It ended fast. But I kept the secret even after you asked me to marry you. I thought if I never told you, it couldn't matter." I stood then, not in rage, but in sheer disbelief. I turned my back so she wouldn't see my face. It wasn't just about Darren anymore. It was the fact that our entire engagement, every moment, every memory, had been a patchwork of lies sewn tight behind my back. "I didn't come to hurt you," she said. I wanted to stop carrying the last piece of the lie." I faced her again, looked her dead in the eyes. "You never carried it," I said. "I did." She blinked fast. Her lower lip trembled. But I'd seen those tears before. They didn't move me now. She stood to leave. But before she opened the door, she looked back at me. "I think you were the only real thing in all of it," she said. Then she walked out. This time, I didn't watch her go. That night, I pulled out the ring box one last time. Not to reflect, to finish something. I took the ring and dropped it in a small metal tin, filled it with lighter fluid, walked out onto the concrete balcony, lit a match, and watched the metal glow hot until the stone cracked and the gold warped. I didn't do it for closure. I did it because that version of myself, the man who kept a ring like a wound, wasn't coming with me into the next part of my life.